I've decided to start a new life without you." The words lingered in the air of the upscale restaurant where we had gathered to celebrate my daughter's college graduation. Richard, my husband of 28 years, stood frozen, champagne glass raised mid-toast, his declaration replacing the speech he was meant to give in honor of Amelia's achievements. The clinking of silverware stopped, conversations ended abruptly, and 50 pairs of eyes darted between us, waiting for my reaction for tears, shouting, or the dramatic exit they all expected. Instead, I smiled. "Congratulations on your honesty. My name is Marian Caldwell. I am 54 years old, and until this very moment, I had played the part of the perfect wife and mother flawlessly. I had put my own career on hold to support Richard through 3 business ventures, 2 career changes, and countless phases of finding himself. I had raised our brilliant daughter, Amelia, who sat beside me in stunned silence, her graduation cap still perched on her head. From the corner of my eye, I saw Vanessa Wells, Richard's much younger girlfriend, shift uncomfortably at a back table among people I had once called friends. Friends who knew about the affair but chose silence. The same Vanessa who had attended our Christmas parties, who had once sought my advice about her career. With practiced composure, I reached into my handbag and pulled out a sealed, cream-colored envelope, placing it beside Richard's plate. "What's this?" he asked, his confident expression faltering. "Something for you to read later," I replied evenly. Turning to Amelia, whose face had gone pale, I kissed her cheek. "I am so proud of you, sweetheart. This day is still about your accomplishment." Then I stood, smoothed my dress, and faced the stunned guests. "Please enjoy your meal. I wish you all a lovely afternoon." With that, I walked out of the restaurant, my head high, feeling 50 pairs of eyes follow me. The heavy door closed behind me, silencing the whispers that were just beginning. Outside, the Augusta summer heat enveloped me, and for the first time in years, I could breathe freely. Behind me, the door banged open, followed by Richard's frantic voice. "Marian, what the hell is this? What have you done?" I kept walking, allowing myself a small smile. The envelope contained the beginning of a revenge I had carefully crafted over months. I had always been the practical one in our marriage. While Richard chased dreams and took risks, I provided stability. I saved for Amelia's education when he squandered money on ill-fated ventures. I worked extra hours as a finance manager when he quit his stable job to find his passion in handcrafted furniture, a passion that fizzled within 6 months. My own dreams of starting a financial consultancy for women had been perpetually postponed. Then, 3 months ago, I noticed irregularities in our joint accounts and small transfers to an unfamiliar account. As someone who had managed our finances for decades, I knew something was wrong. Instead of confronting him immediately, I began investigating. What I uncovered was far worse than I imagined. Richard had been funneling money into a separate account for over a year, spending lavishly on dinners, jewelry, and beachfront property with Vanessa, all while preaching financial restraint at home. Then came the text messages I found on his unlocked phone, filled with plans for their new life together, beginning the day after Amelia's graduation, the day he intended to leave me. But Richard had underestimated me. With 30 years in finance, I knew how to trace assets. I also remembered the prenuptial agreement we'd signed 28 years ago, an agreement that included a fidelity clause. The very clause that would destroy him. While Richard plotted his escape, I built my case. I gathered financial records, consulted attorneys, documented every secret transaction, and filed for divorce timed perfectly to coincide with his grand announcement. What he didn't know was that the papers had already been filed that morning. I didn't return to the restaurant. Instead, I drove home to the colonial house in Augusta that Richard had already promised to Vanessa, according to his texts. The familiar surroundings felt foreign now. The family photos, the heirloom clock, the worn leather couch. I went upstairs and found his suitcases packed, hidden in the back of our closet. Typical Richard, meticulous with appearances, careless with consequences. My phone buzzed with messages from friends, from Richard's sister, from Amelia. I replied only to my daughter. "I'm okay. This isn't your burden. Enjoy your day. We'll talk tonight. I love you." I had shielded her from this for months so she could finish school without distraction. She would be angry, but she would understand in time. Hours later, I heard Richard's car in the driveway. The door slammed open. "Marian!" he shouted, storming into the living room. The envelope crumpled in his hand. What is the meaning of this? You served me divorce papers today of all days. I looked up from my laptop, calm. I thought it aligned nicely with your plans, I said evenly. You wanted to start your new life. I'm simply helping you transition. You had no right to, he began, but I cut him off. I had every right, just as you had the right to choose Vanessa. We all make choices, Richard. His voice regained its smugness. The prenup expired years ago. Any lawyer will tell you that. I smiled slightly. Actually, Richard, I said softly, that's where you're wrong. Actually, it didn't. Section 12 clearly specifies that the fidelity clause remains in effect for the entirety of the marriage. Your lawyer should have explained that to you. Oh wait, you didn't consult one, did you? His confident smirk vanished as realization took hold. The prenuptial agreement he had insisted upon to safeguard his potential fortune would now cost him everything. The house worth $850,000, the vacation property in Savannah valued at $300,000, and his share of our retirement accounts totaling over $400,000. His grand romantic gesture at the restaurant had just turned into the most expensive announcement of his life. You can't do this to me, Richard said, collapsing onto the couch. We built this life together, and you chose to end it, I replied, though not in the way he had planned. Richard's phone buzzed incessantly in his pocket. He glanced at it, then ignored it. Vanessa, no doubt, wondering where he was and why he wasn't following their carefully crafted plan. You've always been calculating, Marion. But this is cold, he said, shifting tactics. What about our history? 28 years together means nothing? I studied him, the man I had loved for nearly 3 decades. The man who had held my hand through 2 miscarriages before we finally had Amelia. The man who once surprised me with a weekend trip to Charleston for our 10th anniversary. When had he changed? Or had he always been this person, and I had simply been too devoted to see it? Our history meant everything to me, I answered truthfully. That's why your betrayal cut so deeply. His expression softened for a moment, perhaps sensing an opening. Then maybe we can fix this. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake, Richard. This was a deliberate plan, carefully executed over more than a year. You systematically moved our money, scouted properties with her, and arranged to announce our separation publicly just to humiliate me. His face hardened again. You're exaggerating. Am I? I lifted my phone, opened the recording app, and played his own voice. After the graduation, I'll tell her it's over. A public setting is better. She won't make a scene in front of everyone. Then Vanessa's voice followed. And she has no idea about the money. Richard again. None. Marion trusts me completely. That's her weakness. The blood rushed from his face. You recorded our conversations? That's illegal. Not in Georgia when one party consents, I answered calmly. And not when it's in your own home. I didn't record your private moments with Vanessa. I'm not cruel. Just the parts where you discussed defrauding me. Richard shot to his feet, agitated. I need to make some calls. Of course, I responded. Your attorney might be a good start. I'll be staying at Diana's tonight. Diana's? He sputtered. My sister's house, I confirmed. She's quite upset with you, actually. She was the one who first saw you and Vanessa together last Christmas. She didn't tell me right away. She confronted you first. You promised her it was nothing, that you'd end it. When she realized you hadn't, she came to me. That revelation hit him like another blow. Diana and I had always been close, but Richard never imagined his own sister would side with me. Everyone's betraying me, he muttered. Ironic, isn't it? I said, gathering my purse and the small overnight bag I had packed earlier. You have until tomorrow evening to remove your things from the house. After that, the locks will be changed. As I headed toward the door, Richard called after me, desperation creeping into his voice. What about Amelia? Have you thought about how this affects her? I froze, anger cracking through my calm exterior. Don't you dare use our daughter as a shield, Richard. You certainly weren't thinking about her when you were planning your new beachfront life with Vanessa, were you? His phone buzzed again. This time he looked at it and groaned. Vanessa's at the apartment already, I said quietly. She's moved her things in. I couldn't help but smile. The apartment you put in both your names? The lease you signed last month? I asked evenly. Richard nodded, confusion flickering across his face. You might want to check with the leasing office, I continued. That application was flagged for credit issues and never finalized. The agent called our home phone to verify information. I handled it myself. With that, I turned and walked out, leaving Richard to confront the first of many consequences. His perfectly orchestrated new life was unraveling faster than he could comprehend. Diana's house was a charming bungalow across town, nestled near the university where she taught literature. When I arrived, she greeted me with a fierce hug. "I just heard from Amelia," she said, pulling me inside. "Are you okay?" "Better than I expected," I admitted, following her into the kitchen, where a half-empty bottle of wine already waited. "I never thought Richard would make such a spectacle," Diana muttered, pouring 2 glasses. "The restaurant in front of everyone. He's lost his mind." "It was meant to humiliate me," I said quietly, taking a sip. "A public rejection, so I couldn't respond without appearing hysterical." Diana's expression hardened. "My brother always did have a flair for drama, but this is beyond anything I imagined." We settled in her sunroom, surrounded by lush plants and shelves stacked with books. Diana had never married, choosing instead a life of independence and scholarship. Over the years, I had sometimes envied her freedom. "What did you put in that envelope that rattled him so badly?" she asked. I told her everything: the divorce filing, the evidence of his financial deceit, and most importantly, the prenuptial agreement that would leave him with far less than he anticipated. "The prenup?" Diana said, amused. "I remember when he insisted on that. Father had just given him money for his first business, and he was so determined to protect it." She laughed softly, shaking her head. The irony is exquisite. My phone rang. Amelia. I drew a steadying breath before answering. "Mom," she said immediately, her voice tight. "I'm coming over to Aunt Diana's." "Honey, you don't have to. I'm already on my way," she cut in. "Dad's telling everyone you've lost your mind, that you've been planning this for months. He's saying awful things." Of course he was. Richard had always been skilled at rewriting the story to cast himself as the victim. "Let him talk," I said calmly. "The truth will surface soon enough." 20 minutes later, Amelia arrived, still in her graduation dress, her makeup smudged from tears. She fell into my arms like she used to after childhood nightmares. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "I didn't want to ruin your final semester," I said softly. "You worked too hard for this day." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Well, Dad took care of ruining it." We moved to Diana's living room, where Amelia finally heard the full story, how I'd discovered the affair, the financial manipulations, and the plans Richard and Vanessa had made. "I knew something was off with Dad," Amelia admitted quietly. "He's been distant, always on his phone, but I never thought—" "None of us want to see those things in the people we love," Diana said gently. My phone buzzed then, a text from Philip Anderson, my attorney. The emergency filing had been approved. The accounts I'd identified were frozen pending the divorce proceedings. Richard now had limited access to funds, enough to live, but not enough to continue his plans with Vanessa. I showed the message to Diana and Amelia. "Good," Amelia said firmly. "He deserves it." Her loyalty warmed me, but I wasn't naive. "He's still your father," I reminded her gently. "Whatever happens between us doesn't erase that." Amelia shook her head. "Maybe someday," she whispered. "But right now, I can't even look at him." "He hugged me this morning," I said quietly. "Told me how proud he was, while already planning to destroy our family just hours later." The doorbell rang. Slicing through the heavy silence that followed, Diana rose to answer it and returned moments later, her expression tense. "It's Richard," she said, "and he's not alone." I steadied myself as Diana led them into the living room. Vanessa lingered awkwardly behind Richard, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, her eyes darting around the room. She was 37, not exactly a trophy wife, but still 17 years younger than me, with shoulder-length blonde hair and the sort of confidence that comes from never having been truly tested by life. Richard, on the other hand, looked livid. The desperation I'd seen earlier had hardened into pure rage. "Marion, you need to stop this insanity," he demanded. "Unfreeze the accounts. We can handle this like reasonable adults." Amelia stood, moving instinctively to place herself slightly in front of me. "Maybe you should have tried being reasonable before announcing to everyone that you were leaving Mom," she shot back. Richard blinked, startled, as if only just noticing our daughter's presence. "Amelia," he said sharply, "this doesn't involve you." "Doesn't involve me?" she repeated, her voice trembling with disbelief. "You blew up our family on my graduation day, and it doesn't involve me." Vanessa reached out to touch his arm. "Greg, maybe we should go," she murmured. He shook her off. "No, I'm not leaving until Marian agrees to be rational about this." Diana folded her arms, her voice cool. "My sister-in-law seems to be the only rational person in the room. You're the one who created this disaster, Richard." I stayed seated, calm amid the storm. For years I had been the peacemaker, the one who mended rifts, who smiled through chaos, who made everyone else comfortable. But that version of me was gone. "The accounts will remain frozen until the preliminary hearing," I said evenly. "That's in 3 days. The judge will decide the asset division then." 3 days? Richard sputtered. "What am I supposed to do for 3 days?" "You have your personal account," I reminded him. "The one you've been funneling money into for the past year." "That should suffice." Vanessa's head snapped toward him. "You have a separate account? With how much in it?" Her voice was sharp, the first crack in their united front. Richard ignored her, his jaw tightening. "This is vindictive, Marian. This isn't you." "Perhaps you never really knew me," I stated firmly. "Just as I apparently never really knew you." Amelia turned to Vanessa. "Did you know he was going to announce it like that?" "At my graduation celebration?" Vanessa hesitated, color rising in her cheeks. I thought he was going to talk to your mother privately. The announcement today was unexpected." Richard shot her a look of pure betrayal. The cracks between them widened. "I think you both should leave," Diana said firmly. "You've upset Amelia enough for 1 day." "Amelia," Richard pleaded, softening his tone. "You understand that relationships change, right? Sometimes people just grow apart." My daughter's face hardened in a way I had never seen before. "What I understand," she said steadily, "is that you're a coward who couldn't even give Mom the dignity of a private conversation. What I understand is that you were stealing from our family while I was working 2 jobs to pay for my textbooks because you said money was tight." Richard paled. "That's not how it was. It's exactly how it was." Amelia cut him off sharply. "Please leave, Dad. I can't look at you right now." The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, Richard turned, his shoulders stiff, and walked to the door. Vanessa trailed after him, subdued. At the threshold, he paused and looked back at me. "This isn't over, Marian. I'll fight you on this." I met his gaze, unflinching. "You're welcome to try." When the door closed behind them, Amelia collapsed beside me on the sofa, tears spilling down her face. "I've never talked to Dad like that before," she whispered. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. "Sometimes," I said softly, "standing up for what's right hurts the most." Diana brought over fresh glasses of wine, her expression lighter than it had been in days. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass. Indeed, I thought. This ending wasn't destruction, it was transformation. The preliminary hearing took place in a small, windowless courtroom on a rainy Tuesday morning. I arrived with my attorney, Philip, calm and prepared, while Richard appeared with a lawyer he had hastily retained, a young associate from a corporate firm, clearly out of his depth in family law. Richard's poor choice of representation was yet another consequence of his impulsive planning. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman with a clipped tone and little tolerance for theatrics, reviewed the prenuptial agreement with meticulous care. "This document appears to be in order," she said finally, peering over her glasses at Richard's attorney. "Do you contest its validity?" The young man cleared his throat nervously. "Your Honor, we believe the agreement has expired due to the length of time that has passed." The judge flipped to a marked page. Section 18 clearly states that the duration is for the term of the marriage, plus any legal proceedings resulting from its dissolution, she read aloud. "There is no expiration date indicated." Richard leaned forward, whispering something urgently to his increasingly uncomfortable lawyer. The judge continued, unbothered. "Furthermore, the evidence of systematic fund transfers appears to violate the financial disclosure requirements in Section 23. She set the papers down and looked up, her voice decisive. "I am ruling to maintain the freeze on all joint accounts pending full financial discovery. Mr. Caldwell's personal account will remain accessible to him. The family home will remain in Mrs. Caldwell's possession during proceedings, as outlined in the prenuptial agreement's infidelity clause." Richard's face turned a deep shade of red. "This is outrageous," he muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. The judge fixed him with a stern glare. "Mr. Caldwell, I suggest you review the agreement you signed more carefully. This court will reconvene in 30 days for the full hearing, following the completion of discovery." As we exited the courtroom, Richard hurried after me. "Marian, please. We need to talk about this reasonably. 28 years together has to count for something." I met his eyes steadily. "It counted for everything," I said quietly, "until you decided it didn't." Then I turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone in the corridor, the weight of his decisions finally pressing down. Word spread quickly through our social circle. Friends called daily, some to offer genuine sympathy, others out of thinly veiled curiosity. I kept my answers brief and graceful. "Richard and I are separating," I'd say. "These things happen." Meanwhile, Richard's carefully crafted image, the successful businessman, the devoted husband, was collapsing under its own falsehoods. The financial freeze meant he could no longer fulfill the promises he had made to Vanessa. The beachfront property fell through. The luxury car deposit vanished. But what Richard didn't know was that I had one more devastating surprise waiting for him. 2 weeks after the hearing, Diana called me, amusement lacing her voice. "Have you heard the latest? Vanessa moved out. Already?" I asked, not entirely surprised, but admittedly impressed by the speed. "Apparently she found out Richard's business isn't doing as well as he led her to believe," Diana said. "The so-called savings he bragged about? They don't exist. She told her friend Jennifer she didn't sign up to date a man with financial problems." I couldn't help but laugh. "He always was good at creating illusions," I said. But while his world was unraveling, I was rebuilding mine. The financial independence I had always quietly maintained, separate from our joint accounts, gave me freedom Richard never anticipated. I rented a small office downtown and began the consultancy I had dreamed of for years. My first clients were 2 women navigating divorces of their own. Word spread quickly. Soon, I was specializing in helping women understand their finances during life's upheavals: divorce, widowhood, career transitions. For the first time in years, my future felt entirely my own. The work was immediately fulfilling in a way my corporate career had never been. Each client reminded me why I had chosen this path: to help women find stability and confidence in moments of chaos. Amelia, who had recently accepted a marketing position in Charleston, called me often. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," she said one evening after I told her about my growing client list. "You're helping people when they need it most." "I'm just doing what I wish someone had done for me," I replied. Preparing women for whatever might come next. For the first time in years, I felt needed not for my patience or my caregiving, but for my knowledge. It was liberating. The final divorce hearing took place on what would have been our 29th wedding anniversary, a strangely fitting end to nearly 3 decades of shared history. Richard arrived looking worn and defeated. I later learned that his business was struggling without my quiet oversight and financial support. Vanessa was long gone, already involved with a real estate developer from Savannah, and most of our mutual friends had drifted away once they discovered the truth of his betrayal. The judge upheld the prenuptial agreement in full. Richard walked away with his personal belongings, his faltering business, and what little remained in his private account, barely enough to rent a modest apartment after his legal fees. I retained our home, my retirement accounts, and 70% of our shared investments, exactly as the agreement had stipulated in the event of infidelity. The justice was poetic. The very document Richard had demanded to protect himself had become his undoing. As we left the courtroom, he stopped me one last time. "I made a terrible mistake," he said softly. "Is there any chance we could—" "No," I interrupted gently but firmly. "That door is closed." He nodded slowly. "I understand. I hope you find happiness, Marian. You deserve it." For the first time in years, I believed he meant it. 6 months later, Caldwell Financial Transitions was thriving. I had outgrown my small office and hired 2 associates. I specialized in helping women rebuild their financial futures through divorce, widowhood, and career transitions. Amelia visited often, her pride unmistakable. "You know what's ironic?" she said one afternoon as we sat in my new corner office overlooking downtown Augusta. "If Dad had just been honest from the start, he might have kept half of everything." "Sometimes people can't see beyond what they want in the moment," I replied, looking out at the city skyline. The woman who had once defined herself as Richard's wife and Amelia's mother had found a new identity: mentor, business owner, advocate. The envelope I had handed Richard that night at the restaurant hadn't just been an escape plan. It had been the key to a door I hadn't realized existed, and behind it, I hadn't just found revenge. I had found reinvention. In securing my financial freedom, I had reclaimed something far more valuable: myself. So, what would you have done in my situation? Would you have stayed calm and executed a calculated revenge? Or would you have confronted him on the spot? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you think I handled this perfectly, smash that like button and subscribe for more revenge stories where karma hits hard. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss an update, because trust me, the stories coming next are even more satisfying than this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.